It was hot in the house. There was no wind. "I'll go for a walk," Jack said to himself. "I'll go to the river." Jack lived in a small town, and soon he was in the countryside. He walked near the river and watched the birds. Suddenly, he saw a girl. She was standing alone, looking at the water. She was young and very beautiful. She had long, dark hair and wore a pretty white dress. Jack went up to her. "Hello," he said. "What's your name?" "I'm Maya," she said, and she smiled at him. Jack and Maya talked for a long time. The sun went down, and it was almost dark. "I must go home," said Maya. "Where do you live?" asked Jack. "In the big house near the river," said Maya. "Where do you live?" "In the little house near the market," said Jack. They laughed. But Jack was sad. The house near the river was big and important. Maya was rich, and he was poor. Jack was in love. After that, Jack and Maya often met near the river. Maya always wore beautiful clothes. She always looked lovely. Jack thought about Maya all day, every day. One evening, Jack said, "Listen, Maya, I've written a poem about you." He took a piece of paper from his pocket and read the poem. "I met her in the evening by the riverside. Her dress was creamy white, and her hair with ribbon tied. She turned and smiled at me, and I asked her for her name. Though I am young and poor, my love will stay the same." "You are wonderful," Jack said. "I love your poem." Jack took Maya's hand and looked into her eyes. "I love you, Maya," he said. "Do you love me?" She smiled. "Yes, of course, I love you," she said. She stood up. I must go home now." Jack was very happy. "She loves me. Maya loves me," he thought. Jack went home. His house was small and poor, but it was always clean and tidy. Jack lived alone with his mother. His father was dead. That evening, his mother watched him. "What's happened, Jack?" she asked. "Why are you so happy?" "It's nothing," Mother said Jack. His mother smiled. "He's in love," she thought. The next day, Jack and Maya met again by the river. Maya looked sad, but Jack did not notice. "Maya," he said, "I am poor now, but one day I will be a famous writer." Maya said nothing. "Will you marry me, Maya?" "Say yes. We'll be so happy." He stopped. Maya looked at him for a moment. There were tears in her eyes. Slowly, she shook her head, then she turned and ran away. Maya shouted Jack, but Maya had gone. Jack went home slowly. He did not understand. What is wrong, he thought. She loves me, doesn't she? His mother was waiting for him. She saw his face. Poor boy, she thought. The girl doesn't love him. Jack and his mother ate their supper in silence. Suddenly, somebody knocked on the door. Jack opened it. A man in a servant's uniform stood outside. "I'm from the house near the river," he said. "My mistress wants to see Jack." "That's me," said Jack. "Can you come with me now?" asked the servant. "Yes," said Jack. He was excited. Perhaps Maya has changed her mind, he thought. Perhaps she does want to marry me. Jack's mother stood at the door of the house and watched Jack and the servant leave. "The house near the river," she said to herself. "I know those people. A rich old woman and her beautiful daughter. My poor son." It was not far to the house near the river. The servant took Jack inside. Jack was excited. His heart was beating fast. Everything was rich and grand. There were beautiful carpets, pictures, and mirrors. Jack saw himself in a mirror. He looked terrible. This place was so rich, and he looked so poor. The servant opened a door. Jack went inside. An old lady was sitting in a big chair. Maya stood behind her. The old woman was ugly. Her eyes were small and cold. Her mouth was thin and hard. Her old hands were covered with big rings. She looked proud and angry. Jack looked at the old woman, then at Maya. What an ugly old woman, he thought. Is she Maya's mother? "So, you want to marry my daughter?" the old woman said. Her voice was hard. Jack looked at her bravely. "Yes," he said. "I love Maya and I want to marry her." The old woman laughed. "You? A poor student? No money, no father, nothing? My daughter will never marry you." Jack said nothing. He looked at Maya. She did not look at him. "I am poor now," he said. "But one day I'll be a famous writer." The old woman laughed again. "No," she said. "My daughter is not for you. She is going to be married soon. You will never see her again." The old woman got up and left the room. Maya and Jack were alone. Jack looked at Maya, but she did not look at him. She stood still and did not say anything. Jack went up to her and put his arm around her. Maya moved away from him. "I'm sorry," Jack said. "Maya, my mother is right. I can't marry you. I don't want to be poor. I want money, clothes, and a big car." "But you love me," Maya said. "Jack, and I love you." He did not understand her. He was angry. "Yes, I love you," said Maya, "but love isn't enough." She looked at him, her face sad. "I'm getting married in 2 weeks," she said. "Goodbye, Jack. I'm sorry." Jack left the big house and ran to the river. He sat there for a long time. "Maya loves me. I know she loves me," he thought. "But she is marrying another man. She is marrying him for money. It's her mother. Maya is afraid of that ugly old woman. Oh, Maya, what shall I do?" After a long time, Jack went home. There was a light in the window of the little house. The door was open. His mother was waiting for him. She looked at his face, then put her arms around him. "They are bad people. My son," she said. "You must forget her." For many days, Jack did not see any of his friends. His mother was worried about him. He did not talk to her. He did not eat or sleep. He often went to the river and sat there alone. All the time, he thought about Maya. One day, Jack saw a headline in the newspaper: "Rich man's beautiful bride." There was a picture of Maya and her husband. She was wearing a long white dress and a diamond necklace. Her husband was old and fat. Jack turned the newspaper over angrily. There was a large notice on the back page. It was an advertisement. Jack sat down and read it carefully. "Write a story and win a prize. Our story competition offers a chance for young writers to win recognition and earn money. Stories can be on any theme but must not be longer than 1,500 words. Send your entry to this newspaper before the end of the month. First prize $500. 10 other prizes of $50. This is my chance," he said to himself. "I'll write the story of Jack and Maya, and I'll win the competition. She'll read our story, and she'll be sorry." Jack was very busy now. Every day he got up early and worked on his story. His mother watched him. She was pleased. He was eating his food again. He was talking and smiling. Sometimes Jack felt pleased with his story. It was a good story. But sometimes it was difficult to write. He was unhappy and wanted to stop writing, but he did not stop. At last, the story was finished. Jack read it to his mother. She was very pleased. "It's a good story, Jack," she said. "It's very good." Jack wrote the story again carefully and sent it to the newspaper. 2 weeks later, a letter came from the newspaper. Jack did not open it. He was too excited. He gave it to his mother. "You read it for me, Mother," he said. His mother opened the letter and read it. "Read it yourself," she said, and gave it to him. She was laughing and crying too. Jack read the letter. "Dear Sir, I am very happy to inform you that you have won the first prize in the story competition. If you would kindly call at this office on Thursday at 10 a.m., the manager will present you with your prize. Yours faithfully. Jack jumped up. He danced around the kitchen and waved the letter from the newspaper. I've won, he shouted. Mother, I've got the prize. I'll be a writer. We'll have some money at last. I'll be famous. Jack's mother smiled. You've done it, Jack, she said. Now you can be happy. The next Thursday, Jack went to the newspaper office. There was a big man behind the desk. The man looked at Jack for a moment, then smiled. Well done, young man, he said. Here is your prize, $500. Jack smiled. This is just the beginning, he thought. A week later, Jack saw Maya again. She was driving a beautiful white car. She was sitting next to an old, fat man. Jack did not look at her. Maya saw him. She looked at him for a moment, then turned away. Jack smiled. He walked to the river. Goodbye, Maya, he said quietly to himself.